Islam. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names was given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Jew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. At this time, I like to recite the Moorish American prayer because this is the source from which I draw my strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First of all, I like to rise, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible, the one who stretches forth the heaven with his hands, who have described with his fingers the courses of the stars, who set it bounds to the ocean that it cannot pass, and said to the stormy winds, be still. I like to give honor to the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star, talking about none other than our holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harmed to set you and me back upright on our feet again. I'd like to give a special honor to Open Signal because Open Signal gave me the avenue to be able to come and talk about the last prophet in these days and time. I'd like to give honor to all of those and honor to all of you that have and will aid and assist us in this, our divine and gigantic mission, the uplifting of fallen humanity. And last but not least, I'd like to give a special honor to effort because so many of us don't even try. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals that was divinely prepared by our Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali for our earthly and our divine salvation. But before I read the chapter of this week, I want to talk to you about two of my best friends. Both of them is I've known them all my life. I grew up with them. One of them was born on October the 31st, Halloween, 1949. He just had a birthday. The other one have a birthday coming up this month, the 10th of this month, which is November the 10th. So what took place was this. My first friend, Sammy Ware, I met him secondly because I knew the other one first. Sammy Ware came from Aiken, South Carolina. When he came up from Aiken, South Carolina, born 1949, they set him back 2 grades. They set him back 2 grades because he came from South Carolina. And they set him back 2 grades. The other brother, Bernard Jordan, they didn't set him back because he was already here in Washington, D.C. So this is what I want to talk about this evening because everywhere I go and everybody I talk to, the concept and the ideologies are different. Just like here in Portland, Oregon, a strike is going on. The strike that's going on is with the education department. And this is part of my subject matter this evening. Now, if you've been listening to the news lately, they was talking about how some of us are taught one thing and a lot of us are taught another. So I want to go back before I read this chapter and tell you about some things that transpired with me. When I was born, and 5 years after, I went to elementary school. And when I went to elementary school, the teacher taught me a beautiful lesson. And the lesson that the teacher taught me was that I was a Negro. And in talking to my cousin Ruth, who just turned 100 years old, she was telling me that she remembered when she first started school. And when she first started school, she was also known as a Negro. And then when you look at Negro and colored and black, you remember Hank Aaron, or you remember all those that played with the Negro League in baseball. So they had a Negro League and they had another league. But we all was with the Negro League because we was Negroes, according to our instructions, according to those who taught us. So now I'm in elementary school. I'm in the first grade in kindergarten, and I'm known as a Negro. Then came Martin Luther King. When Martin Luther King came by, he came and told us something about civil rights, even though we know that civil rights is a non-political issue. Civil rights is not even an issue that you can carry to the United Nations, because we're talking about civil rights. And this is something that you're giving me. It's a granted privilege. But when Drew Ali came and told us about nationality, he gave us human rights. So now Martin Luther King is teaching. And he is teaching all of us about civil rights, which is a non-political office. So now we are no longer known as Negroes. We don't call ourselves that anymore because the government say we're going to switch up, and tell you why later on. So now we're colored. Drew Ali told us that colored is anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. So Martin Luther King telling us about civil rights, which is a non-political issue, but they got rid of him. And when they got rid of Martin Luther King in 1968, then we got another name. They start calling us black. According to the law, black according to science means death. And man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extend beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So now we was known as Negroes, we was known as colored, and we was known as black. And when Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days, because whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. Whenever a people is going through trials and tribulations in their life, God will send one to redeem us from that which is lost. And this is what transpired. He sent Noble Drew Ali. And when he sent Noble Drew Ali came and told us that we weren't Negroes, we wasn't colored, nor was we black. He said because these names was given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now. And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. So now what I want to do, I want to read from a book called The Aquarium Gospel of Jesus the Christ. We're going to talk about Jesus first. We have to talk about Jesus because whenever you open a meeting, we always read from the teachings of the prophet because we have to give ourselves some spiritual enlightenment. So now I'm looking at the lesson that I'm about to read to my Portland listening orders. And I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to check it out. Now, we're first looking at a brother by the name of Jacquin. And Jacquin, it tells you right here that Jacquin and his wife Anna was of the tribe of Judah. And when you begin to talk about Anna and Jacquin, Jacquin was the father of Mary. Mary is the mother of Jesus. Now, Jacquin had a wife. Jacquin's wife's name was Anna. And if Jacquin's wife's name is Anna and she's over here is a Jewish girl. This is what our teachings tell us back then about Anna, said she was a Jewish girl. Now, it's kind of hard for me to really understand in my mind about Anna being a Jewish girl, but the records tell us that. Because man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. Now, we're talking about Anna. And when I went to church, I had an uncle and an aunt. They had a church. And in this church that they had, they taught us a lot of lessons. My mother went to church. My family went to church. And everybody went to church. But in all the lessons that I learned in church, they never told me who Jesus' grandparents were. They never told me about Jacquin. And they never told me about Anna. And Anna is, let me reiterate, this is very important because we need to investigate this. So you'll be what you know and not told. And every time I went to church, I never heard the preacher tell me anything about Anna. I'm trying to find out why, but I studied and I understood why. So now we're talking about Jacquin and we're talking about Anna. Now we got Jacquin and Boaz are the two pillars. This is the two pillars of the Asiatic nation. So let me explain these two pillars with you. Before I get into Jacquin and Anna, because that's what I have right here in the book, I want to tell you somebody else. It's a Lot is the son of Haran. Haran, then Abel is the son of Terah. Terah is the son of Reu. Reu is the son of Pelah. Pelah is the son of Eber. Eber is the son of Salah. Salah is the son of Arphaxad. And Arphaxad is the number of Shem. And Noah had three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So now we're talking about Ham. Ham wasn't always Ham. Or he first was Ham, and then he became Abraham. See, and once he became Abraham, he found grace in the eyes of God. So now we have Shem. We have Shem, and when you have Shem, you're talking about the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Vietnamese. And we've been looking all week long when the Chinese, I have it on record, tells you that they came from Africa. So now we have Ham, we have Shem, and we have Japheth. And whenever you look and see somebody talk about Japheth, they're talking about the European nations. Because you got, when you're looking at the Europe, or when you look at the Europeans, the whole world was once called Asia. The whole world was once called Asia. Now you have two formulations in the human family. And the two formulations that you have in the human family is Asiatic and European. You are one or the other. You're what your forefathers were. So in this chapter, when we're talking about Jacquin making a feast, and he was talking about Anna, and he's talking about, now we're talking about another brother named Joseph. Because when you begin to talk about Ruth's cousin Elizabeth, then you have to talk about Joseph. But Joseph had a father, named Jacob. And we always heard one talking about Jacob when we talking about the spirit. They talking about Jacob climbing Jacob's ladder. And they say when you climb Jacob's ladder, every round gets higher and higher. What do that mean? We're looking at the book, and it talks about the tools of the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where you build up character. So when we talk about Jacob, we're talking about building the temple of perfected man, a temple that will never be destroyed. Now, Drew Ali gave us a lesson here, and he's talking about the tools of the work of the mind. He said we use the compass to draw a circle around our passions and our desires to keep them in the bounds of righteousness. We use the axe to cut away the knotty, unuseless, and ungainly parts to make the character symmetrical. So my lesson today is talking to you about the tools of the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where we build up character. So this is what Drew Ali did. When Drew Ali came on the scene, he told us about character. He told us about our forefathers. He told us about Jesus. Now, in telling me about Jesus, I have to read this too. It has in chapter 46. And in chapter 46, it talks about the foundation of Christianity. It said the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. The Roman nation founded the first church, of whom crucified Jesus of Nazareth for seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. So now they crucified Jesus. They took my Jesus. They took your Jesus. Now I just read here where they're talking about the Jewish law. And I'm trying to understand the Jewish law by my concepts and my ideology, because I'm looking at it. When you talk about the Jews, because when I talk about the Jews, I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about my father, and I'm talking about my mother, because from the east comes all light. And one thing we know, that there was a time when there was two people. There was the Dark Ages, and there was the Moors. And the Moors was those that was trying to bring the people out of the Dark Age. This is why in 7-11, we Moors went into Spain. And when we went in Spain to give Europe civilization. But guess what else happened in 1453? In 1453 Byzantine, the Moors fought with the Ottoman Turks to restore the Islamic creed. But now after 1453, you're going all the way now to 1492. And in 1492, this is when the stronghold of the Moors fell in Granada, Spain. And from 1492, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 5,000. So when we talk about 5,000, we talking about the foundation of Christianity. Now, there was a brother, this name Steve Harvey, and he had a show called The Family Feud. And in this Family Feud that he was talking about some people that was on his show, and they was out of Africa. And he was saying that these people that was out of Africa was Egyptians or whatever name that you want to give them, but they was Europeans. You took on my birthright. You took my Jesus already and buried him in Vatican Square, and you took on the name. Now you got me known as Negro, colored, and black. But in 1913, the Holy Prophet Drew Ali gave the Moors something that nobody else did. And what was this dead he gave us that he gave nobody else was a constitution and bylaws. And in this constitution and bylaws, I just told my daughter that recently, he gave us 7 acts, 14 acts. But Act 6 said, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality. And everybody got now. My friend Bo, the one that's working with me on this show, he just got back from Vietnam. He was there seeing his people. You can't call him nothing other than what he is. So that's why Noble Drew Ali came and told us that we weren't Negro, colored, and black. He told us that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David. And if Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David, then evidently Jesus is no longer who we say he was, because they done took Jesus, buried him in Baptism Square, and took on the name. Now everybody that we looking at is in controversy about our president of the United States. He's doing a good job, but it's kind of hard for us as Moors to get involved because we have our own issues that we have. One of the issues that we have is Negro, colored, and black. And if you call yourself Negro, colored, and black, not only are you outside of the Constitution, you're a slave. You become a slave to sin because you are who your forefathers were. So now, when we was Negro, colored, and black, before the advent of slavery, we went into Europe. And the reason why we went into Europe is to give Europe civilization. We wanted to bring them our civilization, showing them how to learn to love instead of hate. Because hate and love is two different constructs. You are one or the other. And if you say that you are an angel, because an angel is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh. And a prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in flesh. And what are angels used for? To carry messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations. Now, let me go back here. We're talking about Mary. And we're talking about Mary marrying Joseph. And we're talking about Jacob. And the book said we're climbing Jacob's ladder. And how do you climb Jacob's ladder? By living a moral and clean life. And this is what we do when we're talking about we are honoring the creed and principles of our mothers and fathers and straying after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing of. So let me read this again. It says the foundation of Christianity but getting to Rome. Going back to that same guy, Steve Harvey, he said he went to Africa. And he said when he went to Africa, he seen a dungeon. And the dungeon that he seen was when we as a people was put in the advent of slavery. And the European, what I say European? See, because I don't know no white man. And the only black flag I know is the one that kill roaches. So now, when you begin to talk about you white, what are you, a Dutch? Are you a Portuguese? Are you a French? Are you an Irish? Because you have to understand that just like our great president, when you begin to check their history, he's a German. All those Europeans are German because you will not find an Asiatic of any descent that will call themselves white. I can't call myself black. I can't call myself white because I'm who my forefathers were. So during the advent of slavery, you had brothers, you had Europeans from all different perspectives. Just like right now, they was telling me today, we was in a meeting this morning about 1948. And when they was talking about 1948, they was saying this is when the Israel come about. I say Israelites. And when I say Israelites, I have to be talking about those of African descent. Now, what do you mean by you talking about Israelites? You have to be talking about those of African descent. When Moors went into Spain in 711 and gave Europe civilization, our nationality was Moorish, but our religion was who? Our religion was what they are talking about now on the media about the Israelites and everybody else. The lost tribes of Israel are you and me. We are the lost tribes of Israel. we are those that was buried and our names was taken on, and this happened during the advent of slavery. And this is what you need to look at, my friends and family, because we're talking about nationality. Everybody have a nationality except you and me. We don't have a nationality. All we know is that we're Negro, and Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. We are not colored. Colored is anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. Now, when you're talking about colored, and that's being anything that has been painted, stained, where do the colored people come from? Now we're talking about black. Black, according to science, means death. And if you call yourself Negro, like now, we have to go back to what I was saying when I was in school. We was Negroes, then we was colored, and then we become black. And that means that our nationality was buried under the ground, and these names was given to slaves. See? These names was given to slaves by slaveholders. Now, who are the slaveholders? In 1779, and lasted until 1865. But if you're talking about 1865 during the time of slavery, then you have to understand that you are not Negro because you're who your forefathers were. You are not colored. You're who your forefathers were. So as I was saying earlier, my two friends, both of them went to school. One of them come up from Aiken, South Carolina. One of them was living in the district. And when he came from Aiken, South Carolina, they set him back 2 grades. And the reason why they set him back 2 grades, because the lessons that you were getting here in Portland, Oregon, the lessons that you're getting in a lot of these other schools, because the school system is talking about it now. And the lesson that you're talking through the school system is not the same lesson that we're teaching there. Everybody don't have the same curriculum. Everybody don't have the subject matter. And all my friends that I know that went to school with me, right now, they're calling themselves Negro. Some of them calling themselves colored. And some of them is calling themselves black. And they say black is a culture. But black is a slave name because you're who your forefathers were. Through the advent of slavery, you was Moorish. You was Moorish then, and you're Moorish now, because you're who your forefathers were. And this is very important, because we, as a people, don't realize that we are telling our children, we are telling our grandchildren that they was black. The only black flag I know that killed roaches. Who were your forefathers, and from which did they come? So now, let me read something else from you in the book. It said, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. This is beautiful. This is beautiful because it's important. It said, old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of a Maxim, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the Father and the Son, the dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest Africa was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Land joined them. So now we're talking about Africa and we're talking about Asia. The whole world was called Asia at one time. The whole world was called Asia, and at that time, Europe was not even in existence. I hear often when I'm talking to brothers and sisters in my traveling, or even when they visit the temple, they tells us that they black. They say we black, and black is a culture. but black is a slave name. And we have to look at this because nobody else on this top side planet mud have a nationality. The only one that don't is you and me. And one minute we this, the next minute we that. And if you don't proclaim your nationality, you can't even talk about reparation. How can we go to the government and say, because you just gave them people them billions of dollars, those who you call Jew, and they used to say years ago, when I first joined the temple, that they were so-called Jews. They don't use that terminology no more. They don't say you a so-called Jew. Even certain organizations that used to be a part of the Moorish Temple of America. When the government gave you that $100,000 a year to tell people that they was black, then what you did was set them outside of the constitutional fold, because there's no such thing as a black man. There's no such thing as a Negro. There's no such thing as color. And through scientific study and investigation, you will find out who you are. Look at that. They took your Jesus. Now you in church. You go to church. And when you go to church, you say that you honor Jesus. You say that you honor Jesus, and Jesus is the son of Mary. But when you honor Jesus, he was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David, just like Mary. But where do this Negro, colored, and black come from? These names was given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But we have an issue. Drew Ali said there's but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost. And it comes through the connection of the Moorish national and divine movement. He said if you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. And this is what was meant when it was said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So now, look at this. When I was talking about Jesus, when I was talking about Mary, when I was talking about Jacqueline, these are two pillars. Jacqueline and Boaz are the two spiritual pillars. But before we can talk about Jesus, we first must talk about Ruth. My cousin Ruth, who just had a birthday, her name is Ruth. And you have to talk about Ruth. And who was Ruth? Who was Ruth married to? Ruth was married to Boaz. And when you begin to talk about Boaz, then you have to talk about Jesse. You have to talk about Solomon. You have to talk about King David. And these are they that took our names away from us and gave us some more. So when you talk about these two pillars, the two spiritual pillars, you're talking about Jacqueline and Boaz, and you're talking about Ruth, and you're talking about Jacqueline. You got to go there because these was taken from you and me. We was given names that had nothing to do with our forefathers or had nothing to do with our growth and our development. And this is kind of rough here because if you look and check the records and investigate, you'll find out that everybody that's living here in America, other than the Moorish Americans, call themselves black. And these names was given to us. We're not black. We're not colored. We're not Negro. And it look crazy because me telling you this right now, and especially when the school system is on strike, and you go to a teacher that's in the school system and tell her that she's not black, she's going to look at you like you crazy. I have a lot of family members and friends who got degrees in college. And those who have degrees in college, they don't even honor Jesus. You say that you honor Jesus, but you don't honor Jesus because Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David. And when you first started school, you wasn't black. I'm in my 70s. Nobody that started school with me was black. Black was not even in existence. We didn't call ourselves black until after Martin Luther King got killed. When Martin Luther King got killed in 1968, then and only then did that name we give him that name, and then we start calling ourselves black. So we got some education to do. The education of Mary and Elizabeth in Zion, Egypt. So now we got to look at who our forefathers were. We have to look at our history, not his story, but we have to look at our own history. And when you look at your own history, you'll see again that Jesus was buried in Vatican Square. And they took on Jesus' name and gave you and I other names. So this is why the wars are going on that it is. Because you got people from everywhere right now. Like I say, when you talk about Egypt, when you look at Egypt, Egypt was people look just like me. But the Egyptians don't look like me no more. I told you about that show I seen, The Family Feud, where the Egyptians come on, and they look nothing like me. We're talking about Africa. Africa is the cradle of civilization. But you done took my name, and you get, now, I just mentioned in 1948, when they was talking about those who call themselves Jew. But guess what happened? Now let's look at 1956. In 1956, Morocco got its independence from under French rule. Now you see Queen Isabella. You know, Queen Isabella, she and her children got all that money. They are Europeans, but they have all that money. Now they're calling themselves Moroccans. Morocco is a part of Africa, not Europe, but those that was in Africa. You kill them all off because they say right here, what does it say right here? It says August the 2nd, 1492, 300,000 Jews were expelled from Spain. Let me reiterate that. It says 1492, 300,000 Jews was expelled from Spain. Why was that? Why was the Jews expelled from Spain? Because they're talking about you and me. You and I was expelled from Spain. And that had a lot to do with the slave trade. Now, when we begin to talk about the slave trade, who are they talking about? Where does they, just like right now, I have two son-in-laws. Both of them is from Nigeria. But when you talk about the slave trade, then they say that Nigerians is a part of Africa. That's the slave trade. Both of them, both of my son-in-laws are Moors, because that's the record. When you check the record, you will find out through scientific study and investigation, man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So now they want billions of dollars to give to their family. They want to give it to their family because you claim who I am. You are saying to me that you are this, or you saying that you are that. But like I say, in 1948, this is when you got your play. And it takes time to do what you're doing, but everybody's beefing now. Everybody is going through trials and tribulations through the advent of slavery, and everybody done took on my name. You got 100 people that took on my name. You calling yourself who I am. You even took my Jesus. You took my Mary. You took my Joseph. You took my Elizabeth. You took my Ruth. You took my Boaz. You know, you took David. You took Goliath. You took all of my forefathers. But during that time, you have to understand, when you was in the Dark Ages, you had no one of Europe descent that was talking about the Spirit of God. But then they say, let's get them chumps. They said, they're over there talking about their morals. We got them now. You know, we can do whatever we want to. We're going to take their name, we're going to call ourselves who they are, we're going to take their names and everything. So it's very important for our babies. We're not at mad. See, we're not at war. We're not at war with no European nation. That's what the Sheik always say. He said in our meeting the other day. He said, we are at war with sin and crime. Because it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. And through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their mothers and fathers and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. I was looking in the book the other day, and we were looking at the brothers from China. And the brothers from China, they were saying, man, we checked the record. And in us checking the record, we actually thought that we was greater than those of African descent. But we come to find out that Africa is a cradle of civilization. When I was over my cousin Ruth's house, when she was on her 100th birthday, and all the elders were sitting up there in the room. So I walked in the room, and they was talking. And one of them say, you have that fez on? Is that because you a Mason? And I said, no, the Mason is my son. But Noble Ali told us some things that we couldn't be Masons because, first of all, whenever you find someone who calls himself Mason, then they're telling you that they are 33 and a third. And that means that their affairs is tied down, you know, to 33 and the third. But me, being who my forefathers were, my nationality is Moorish American. Why are you Moorish American? Because we are the descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Who are these Moroccans? They are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. So my fairs swing 365 degrees or 360 degrees because 6 and 3 is 9. We talking about man being upright. So all of these lessons that we had, Jesus was taught. Moses was taught. All these brothers and sisters was taught. They was taught in Africa. But you came and stole my birthright, and I understand it. It's my fault. It's my fault that you done took my Jesus, and now everybody is talking about Jesus. Everybody is honoring Jesus and talking about Jesus when you know that brother was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David. I was in this brother that used to be brother, I don't remember his name, but he was talking so beautiful. He was talking about, as I said earlier, he was talking about the so-called Jews. Now, in our studies, you never heard that. You is or you ain't. Ain't no in between. You're one thing or you're another. But the reason why they call it so-called, because they knew it was going to take a few more years to get things sunk in. And all those that was talking about the so-called this or so-called that, they no longer use that phrase. Because Drew Ali, when Drew Ali found the Moorish Science Temple of America, he told us that. He told us that. He told us that man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. So now we have to go back when we begin to study. And like I said, my two friends, both of them were born in 1949. And both of them, you know, one of them went to school 2 years after the other. But in school, these are where we got these particular lessons. And these were the lessons that came from your father and your mother. Most of my friends is in the church. And the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. So now when you begin to talk about Jesus, and when you begin to talk about the foundation of Christianity, the Roman nation found the first church. Of whom crucified Jesus? For seeking to redeem his people from under the Roman yoke and law. Now let's look at the Roman Empire. When you look at the Roman Empire, it's right here in the book. Drew Ali say the foundation of Christianity began in Rome. Now I'm not talking derogatory. I'm just teaching because I have a granddaughter. And I have another granddaughter that's on her way. And if her mother want to be black, if her father want to be black, if her sister want to be black, if her aunt want to be black, let the grandfather tell you that you're who your forefathers were. Let your forefathers tell you that you need to begin to study the teachings of Jesus, because Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa, seeking to redeem his people in those days from under the pressure of the pale-skinned nations of Europe. Rome crucified him according to their law. Then Europe had peace for a long time until Muhammad I came upon the scene and fulfilled the works of Jesus. That's why Drew Ali told us that we had something that you call the silent brotherhood. And the silent brotherhood don't do a lot of talking. They just march and counter-march. So before I came on the show, I talked to the minister on the phone. He said, certain things you don't even have to say. It's not for the European nations anyway, because we can't say nothing to the Europeans, because they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you anyway. You look, it's on the news right now. And on the news right now, I hear everybody talking about all the children that they done killed, all of the families that's getting slaughtered. But you know what? Let's go back to 7/11. Let's go back. That happened to me. All that stuff that you're talking about and all the family that's getting killed, that happened to me. You did that to me. You buried my boy. You got me calling myself Negro, colored, and black. These are slave names. And if our people call ourselves Negro, colored, and black, let me show you something. Right here it talks about St. Patrick's Day. We're talking about St. Patrick's Day. And when you begin to talk about St. Patrick's Day, all Europeans, the one that you call white, they don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Everybody don't celebrate Day. All of the Europeans have their own holidays. So those that call themselves Europeans, they have a St. Patrick's Day, but each other European nation have their own holiday. See? Everybody have their own holiday except you and me. We don't have a holiday. The only holiday we have is the one that was given to us by our slave master. Now they just look at Halloween every day. Got you scared to death. You scared to jump up and everything because Halloween is a day that make you scared. But the Moors, as we begin to study our history and our culture, we come to find out that Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites. Now, when you're talking about the Canaanites, you're talking about the Hittites, you're talking about the Amorites. But we're talking about a culture. We're talking about a culture. We're talking about a people that had love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which is the highest principles known to man. These are principles that we had in our life that was given to us by the great God Allah, but it was taken away from us and given to somebody else. You went into Spain, hit me upside my head, took my culture, took my customs, took my heritages, and you took my traditions and gave it to yourself. Now I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at your concepts, and I'm looking at your ideology, and everything you got from me. Even my fairs, you took everything. All of our people. Right now, when we went into Spain in 7/11, we went in Spain to give Europe civilization, to bring them out of the dark ages, to tell them about love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Certain things that we didn't do because Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and Lot, and David was of the unseen brotherhood. The unseen brotherhood was those that came from God. But now, when I grew up and went to school, and all my old friends, we still talking about it. when I went to school and you got you a girlfriend, and when you got you a girlfriend, this girl had you licking and had you sucking and had you doing the same things that's diametrically opposed to the teachings of our forefathers. And that's what we have now. All of my friends, girl, hey, now you don't like me, sister. You don't like me because you doing the same thing that we went into Spain to tell the Europeans to stop doing. Carnal customs and the mere ideas of man. Things that have never done us any good, but have always harmed us. My mother. When my mother first taught me, she said, son, certain things you just don't do. Always honor the creed and principles of your mothers and fathers, and don't stray after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing of. I'll think about Cousin Ruth, who just turned 100 years old. And we was talking about her father. Her father and my father was all right. Matter of fact, he the one that told me something about my father because I was too young to really understand. But they come from Africa, which is the cradle of civilization. And all of us of African descent is no longer who our forefathers were, because not only do we call ourselves Negro, colored, and black, we act that way. We act that way, and the school system teaching us the lessons that they want us to have. We see it all week long. They're talking about the school system, and they're talking about the curriculum that's given to the school system. But wherever you go across the country, everybody don't have the same concepts. Everybody ain't taught the same thing. And the beginning of it, most of the guys that I know that call themselves black is because the money that they got, the man give it to you so you can call yourself that, because they done took our birthright. And when they took your birthright, they gave you other birthrights. Now you're doing things like I did, because before I become aware of the teachings of Juali, I thought that I was in Europe. I thought that I was a part of their concepts, and I was doing, certain things I ain't never do though, because I was young. But certain things that we was told to do, we don't do that. So I wanted to share that part of it, because right now, we're talking about reparation. Listen to this very close, because Noble Drew Ali told us about reparation. And he told us that in order for us to redeem that which was lost, we're going to have to sit down at the table with the European nation. But right now, they got us on another plane, because right now you got 100 Moorish Temple of America. You got 100 of them. And most of them is getting paid from the government. But ain't but one Moorish Temple of America, and that's those that teach nationality and divine creed. I was in a meeting about a week ago with some ministers from right here in Portland, Oregon. And they have a lot of brothers and sisters and did some paperwork. And this paperwork that they done, this paperwork tells them they don't have the same flag like we have. We have two flags. We have national and international to conjoin, making us Moorish American. They don't like to use the American flag, but we're American citizens. Noble Drew Ali told us that we're American citizens. And because we were American citizens, we have supreme issues that we need to redeem, which that was lost. But before we could even deal with any other issue in ourselves, the first thing we have to do is be who your forefathers were. Nationality is the order of the day. Man today is what his forefathers were yesterday. And there's no one who is able to change man from the decent nature of his mother and father unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. So do me a favor. They got two things they have. They have a monologue and they have a dialogue. I want to have a monologue. And why I want to have a monologue with you is I want you to investigate. The first thing I need you to investigate is the Moorish history. The Moors went into Spain in 711. Check that out. The Moors went into Spain in 711, and we went into Spain in our higher self to give Europe civilization, to bring them out of the Dark Ages. And this is where Noble Drew Ali come in. You know, the book say whenever nations in need for a prophet, God will send one. So you mean to tell me that God sent us a prophet? Yeah. He sent us a lot of brothers that was here. Elijah Muhammad. A whole lot of brothers used to be in the Moorish Temple of America. But then, later on down the line, they become something else. I was looking at a book, and I got it now to share, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's son, named Ward Dean Muhammad. And he was the leader, after his father passed, he was the leader of the Nation of Islam. But he said, hey man, let me clear something up. He said, I want to clear something up because it's important. He said, when my father first taught a lecture in the Moorish Science Temple of America, it was brothers that had affairs on like me. He said, will you stand up? And then when he did that, that same brother that had that affairs on, it wasn't the same affairs because it didn't have signs and symbols on it. See, you have a lot of affairs with a lot of signs and symbols on, but we're taught in our upper room that there was those that was a part of the Moorish Science Temple of America and were teaching their war affairs. But that was diametrically opposed to what we was given because you took my birthright. You took my birthright and you stole it. And you gave me something diametrically opposed to who I really am. And this is why I honor the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali so much, is because he told me something that a lot of people don't even know yet. He said that you are not Negroes. He said Negro is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water. He said you're not colored. And I will finish this in a minute on another show. So at this time, what I like to do, I like to close out and say praise Allah and honor the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I close out with the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet Drew Ali. Amen.